And so it is done. Canelo v Crawford is in the bag, people, and god damn, yo, that was impressive, man. That was impressive, right? I have to say, I enjoyed this event as a whole, right? Because I thought there was some good fights on the undercard. The co-main was okay. But the main event, now, I think it might not have been what everyone expected. You know what I mean? And I think some people were hoping for knockouts, knockdowns, all of that. But this kind of was what I was expecting. You know? It's like Canelo, he comes out fast, right? And gosh, someone said it at the very end, right? For Canelo to win, he had to come out fast. But they were like, but he didn't. He did. Right? Canelo came right at Crawford at the start. The thing was, Crawford hit him hard straight away. And that gave Canelo pause. You know what I mean? Look, Canelo was the bigger man. Right? He's the one that has fought at that weight longer. Crawford was coming up. But Crawford gave himself a year to put on the weight well, right? A bit like John Jones when he moved up to heavyweight. Took a year to put on the weight. And I don't think that Canelo, he didn't underestimate Crawford. You know, I would not say that. But I think he thought that his punches would have more of an effect. And that's a fair assumption. You know what I mean? Like, that's fair. You're the bigger person. You've been murking people at that weight for time. So obviously you would think someone coming up, not used to that power, they're going to recognize, you know? But no. And Crawford stung Canelo. Now, I'm not saying he hurt Canelo, right, with that opening punch. But it showed Canelo that Crawford, firstly, ain't backing down, right? Because, boom, you come forward, you're big, heavy hands. The opponent will back up, right? The opponent will give ground. But Crawford did not. He didn't give ground. He didn't back up. He stood and he cracked. So when you see that, you have to then go, okay, right. I'm not going to just run through this guy, right? I'm not going to be able to bully this guy. And then when you pause, you now give Crawford the opportunity to come with range. And we saw Crawford masterfully use his reach, use his length. You know, he really did a very good job from the outside. But when it came inside, we didn't see him trying to clinch. We didn't, you know, he let fly combinations. Woo! Those combinations were nice. A lot of uppercuts, which, you know, landed well, you know? And I think the difference when you look, Canelo, heavy hands for sure. But when he was throwing, a lot of the time, it was single shots or just twos, you know? Like, he wasn't putting together the combinations that Crawford was putting together. And I think there was something to that, right? We knew Crawford would be fast, right? Crawford is fast like a motherfucker. We knew that was going to be the case. But, right, there's having speed. But if you can't make someone check themselves, right? If you're throwing shots and they're just walking through them, right? They're just swiping them away like you're a gnat. There's going to be issues. And we've seen that shit, you know what I mean? But that's not what this was. Crawford used that speed, put together those combinations. Then he used his footwork to step out and then come back. And we were seeing that all night. Now, it wasn't like, look, Crawford won the fight clearly, but it wasn't a walkover. This was a good fight. You know, I think Crawford won the first 4 rounds, and then in the 5th, Canelo came back, you know, which is, that shows something, right? That shows the mettle of a man to know, okay, I've lost the first 4 rounds, right? You know what I mean? This isn't going as I thought. But then to go, okay, what do I need to do? And then come back in the 5th? You know what I mean? But then in the 6th, right? Crawford could have crumbled. Crawford would have gone like, fuck, he's found me out, right? He's worked out what I'm doing. He's now coming. What do I do? What do I do? Fuck, what do I do? No. Because then in the 6th round, Crawford re-established the range, right? Re-established the combos, just everything. And that's, I think, you know, Canelo had another couple, 2-3 rounds. But anytime he tried to build momentum, Crawford would then stifle it. You know what I mean? Crawford would then slap it back down. Be like, oi, no. Get back in your corner. You know what I mean? And even at the end, like, we know Crawford is up and up well, right? And it gets to a point where the only way Canelo can win is a knockout, right? A knockout. Or if he, you know, a knockdown gives him an automatic 10-8, right? He needs something. So at that point, Crawford could just be on his bike, right? He could be on his bike, because we know Crawford, great defense. So he can shell up and just avoid everything, can move around and play safe. Crawford did not play safe, right? Didn't play safe. That's not what it was about. He came on. He came on and then was just throwing, right? It wasn't quite a Max Holloway, you know what I mean? But Crawford at the end just stood and threw. Oh man, it was so impressive. So impressive. And the other thing I thought was great was, man, the way Anik just held everything together. You know what I mean? Like, I think John's skill is, I mean, obviously, right? It's his work ethic. It's his passion and enthusiasm, right? Like, those things just permeate through, and it can help heighten the enjoyment of the viewer. So John has that, but he also has this innate skill of like knowing when to talk and when not to talk, right? When to ask the question, when to bring someone into the conversation, when to kind of hold everything up and be like, yo, let's hold on. What's happening? You know what I mean? John does that. He is like a conductor of an orchestra. And he masterfully did that for this final fight, right? He was working his thing all night, but yeah, he did a great job in this final fight, you know what I mean? And it was just tremendous. It was just tremendous. You know, like the referee didn't really have to do too much. You know, Canelo and Crawford came to fight, came to size up and see who was the GOAT, right? That was it. Who was the GOAT? And it was Crawford. It was Crawford. One thing I did think, right? So when it was all said and done, right? And when they went to Mario Lopez and they're talking and it was just like, oh, like, did we see from the skull fight that Canelo was slowing down, right? Was the writing on the wall then? And they all go trying to go, and then someone else go, no, it was 4 fights ago because, you know, Crawford has been calling for this fight for 2 years. And I'm like, hey, Crawford was calling for the fight not because he was like, ooh, Canelo's slowing down. Ooh, Canelo's not as good as he used to be. Crawford ain't looking to try and fight a, you know what I mean, a second-rate Canelo. Crawford wanted to fight the best Canelo. It's not that he was seeing weakness. It was just Crawford thought, you know what? I see what Canelo does, but I feel I have the style to beat him, right? I feel I can do what no one else has. And that was the thing, right? And like no one else at the, you know, the right weight class, right? Obviously when Canelo moved up to, wasn't heavyweight, but, you know, be that. You know what I mean? Like, it was just so big, right? Though Canelo did do well in that fight, but it's like, when you can fight him on his own ground, right? No one's beating him like that. And so Crawford saw that. And I said it in the preview, man. Like, Canelo has had that John Jones situation, you know? Where John was so good, right? He'd beaten all the legends, right? He beat all the supposed toughest tests. So then when it comes to people like Ovince St. Preux, and this ain't a knock on Ovince St. Preux, because Ovince St. Preux was a good fighter, right? I think he won the belt at Bellator, right? But look, he's won big fights in other organizations. He won big fights in the UFC, right? But ain't on John's level. You know what I mean? But so John it's difficult to get up for that fight, right? Because it's not the money fight, right? It's not the big fight. And John's already won all of those. So how do you motivate yourself to beat these people, right? Not to beat them, but to, you know, train your hardest, right? Just to work that extra, come that extra. You know what I mean? That was the thing. So he'd win those fights, but sometimes they weren't as spectacular as the earlier fights, right? And that's what Canelo had. He'd beaten all the big people. So it was hard to motivate himself for some of these other fights, right? Like Skull, And the Skull was the mandatory challenger. So it wasn't like this big fight set up. So it was hard for him to motivate himself, right? So that was the thing. And then the Crawford fight is going to be good. But you haven't fought in first gear for a while, right? You haven't fought in first gear for a while. And you're thinking this person he's skilled for sure, but he's coming up. Right? Like, he won't be able to take my punches. I'll be able to bully him. So it was just those things, right? Those miscalculations, those preconceived notions, and the fact that Crawford had worked his ass off. Crawford had studied tape, had looked at, formulated a plan. That's what it was. It wasn't a diminished Canelo. It was just Crawford is that dog, right? Crawford is that motherfucker. Crawford was ready. And now Crawford is the GOAT. What? Terence Bud Crawford, undisputed, bona fide, legit champion of the world. Yo, that was great. That was great. And if Crawford never fights again, he's the man, right? Legacy set. And here's the thing as well. This does not destroy Canelo's legacy. Doesn't do it. Canelo is still one of the greatest of all time, right? Canelo has done so much in the game. So much, right? So this doesn't make you go, he was never really that good. You're a fool if you think, this fraud checked Canelo, right? Because he's beaten all the motherfuckers. So shut the fuck up with that noise. Canelo's still great. It's just that Bud Crawford is the greatest. There you go, people. And hey, if this is the start of what boxing will become, right now with TKO in the mix, Dana White, Turkey, Nick Khan doing their thing, I can't fucking wait. I'm looking forward to it. You know what I mean? I am looking forward immensely. I don't know if I'd say this was as great as a great UFC card, like UFC 300 or, Poirier Holloway 3, right? I don't know if it's one of them cards, but it was good. This was good. I had fun. And Terence Bud Crawford is the motherfucking man.